Good evening, North Carolina A&T fans, and welcome back to the Aggie Pridecast. This is our final edition of the 24-25 season. And so what better way to end it than the way we started it? And that's with our athletics director at North Carolina A&T. His name is Earl M. Hilton III, and so glad that he is with us here this evening. So many things to get into, so many things to talk about, so many exciting things going on in athletics. When you look at what track and field did over last week in Jacksonville, Florida, was absolutely incredible. They continue to be not only the premier HBCU program in the country, but just one of the best programs in the country, period. They continue to send multiple folks to NCAAs, and the beat just continues under Director of Track and Field, Alan Johnson. So certainly we'll get into some of those things as well. Baseball, softball have wrapped up already, and so certainly we can kind of get into what the spring season brought to us. And then looking ahead to the fall, football, of course, is top of everybody's mind. Volleyball coming off a great season in which they made it to the CAA tournament, cross country. All of those things are on top of mind. But I'm just and first of all, let me just say welcome, Earl. How you doing?
Mr. Holloway, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Oh, no problem. I was about to lay into you, man. And I was just like, I need to say hey first.
No problem. No problem.
What, as you sit in the executive suite on the top of Moore Gymnasium, what is the top issue that kind of flows to your mind as we wrap up 24-25 and step into 25-26?
Well, everything is subordinate to student athlete health and safety, always mental health, academics. But once you take those two permanent pieces out of the picture, the house settlement, the transfer portal, NIL, the new Division I certainly is what I think about most of the time when I'm not worried about academics or making sure our student athletes are safe.
Talking about, and we'll get to that. We'll start with the safety portion of it. We've added some nutritionists, a training table. Certainly trainers play certainly a part of that. You mentioned mental health, which is certainly a big thing that we're stepping into now. Where do you see A&T as it pertains to the space of student health, mental health, and just taking care of our student athletes from a physical standpoint and a mental standpoint?
No, great question, Brian. You mentioned the nutritionist. We've had a nutritionist position for a couple of years now. Our new nutritionist, Molly, just started today. Was her first day, so we're happy to have back. We've had a gap of a few months. Our last nutritionist took another job at a Power 5 school. So we're excited to have Molly on board. You mentioned mental health. We've had a counselor now in athletics for a couple of years. We've created a new position, an additional position. So we will by fall have 2 full-time mental health professionals in the Department of Athletics specifically to help our student athletes balance the demands, the increasing demands of school and athletics competition, and the demands of life, and certainly the layers of transfer portals and NIL on top of what they've had to deal with in the past to help them manage through those challenges. Training table, certainly something that we're very pleased with. That's, I guess, I'm not good with time, B. 3 or 4 years now we've had that in place. We've talked in the past, one of the things that I worry about the most with our student athletes, they don't eat enough and they don't sleep enough. And without those two components, without enough calories, without enough rest, it's difficult to recover. It's difficult to heal. It's difficult to build. And it's not perhaps like it used to be in the past where there weren't enough calories available. The calories are there. Now we simply have to encourage compliance. We need people to eat. We need them to eat regularly and healthily. And so that's an educational process. The nutritionist Molly will be key in that education of our student athletes, helping them see how many calories they're actually burning and using in their sport. and the need to be deliberate and diligent and consistent in eating appropriately, eating effectively, so that they can rebuild and replenish. That affects not just obviously their athletics performance, but certainly their performance in the classroom and every other aspect of their life. Their ability to be whole and complete is a function of eating correctly, recovering from the demands that athletics places on them, and then getting enough rest. And that, I'm preaching to the choir here. Our student athletes don't do a good job of it. Many of our professionals don't do it. We work too many late hours and early mornings. So we've all got to do better in this space. We've got to sleep better, and we'll have much better success if we can manage our time in that way.
I think if I get a training table, I'll be okay. I think that would help me.
Yeah, getting enough calories is no longer a problem for me. Yeah, that's something I have to work on the other side of it now. But I'm not 20 anymore, so
I'm far from 20. I am that.
Yeah.
Academically, where do you see A&T athletics? That was, as you came into this position, I believe 15 years ago, that was a big thing for you. Where does academics, you look at cross country, men's golf has done very well, recently recognized as two of those top programs. But academically, where are we and where can we improve?
Yeah, great question. I was looking at that data very recently. There are three main measures of academic success in college athletics. You have the APR, the academic progress rate. You have the FGR, the federal graduation rate, and you have the GSR, the graduation success rate. And those metrics, with the exception of the FGR, two of those are just athletically related. They just apply to student athletes. As I was looking at that data recently, and I'm going to pull these numbers off the top of my head, so I hope I'm close. Our APR, our departmental APR number has gone up about 29 points in the last 15 years. The average, the 4-year rolling average, jumped from about 942 to 981. Don't do the math on that. Pretty significant jump from our departmental APR. Our FGR has jumped about 9 points. Again, 4-year rolling average. I think it's gone from 52 to 61, if I'm remembering those numbers correctly. And then our GSR has had a similar kind of jump, going from the 950s into the 980s, or the 55% to 80% for a GSR, 4-year rolling average. So very pleased with the trajectory of the department in terms of academic success. We were one student athlete away from having a departmental GPA coming out of spring 2025 of 3.0. We were one student athlete away from getting all 18 of our teams above a 3.0 for the first time in our history. So very pleased. Now, and I know, but I want to make sure that everyone who's listening understands that this is really a function of our student athletes and their commitment to their education and the incredible support they get out of Katrina and the Center for Academic Excellence, the academic counselors and the learning specialists who work so diligently and so consistently with our young people to help them learn how to manage college as a freshman, as they come in and begin to figure out how time works and how syllabuses can be read, but then to stay with them and give them the tools and the skills to organize their life and their studies in such a way that they can be successful and meet the demands of Division I college sports. Very happy with where we are, especially when I consider coming through the pandemic. We saw some hiccups during the pandemic. Remote learning was hard for us college students. It was difficult. And it was harder for some groups than others. And I'm speaking of genders. Our young women did better with remote learning than our young men did. But watching our young men rebound through that, pick their scores back up, their success collegiately, And we're getting, help me here, Brian. So the freshmen that are coming in now would have been what, in 7th or 8th grade
During
when
COVID?
COVID started
Yeah.
in 2020. So yeah, so those young people may have some gaps in how to learn, how to study, how to manage their education that we wouldn't have expected 10 years ago. But I've really been pleased with how our Center for Academic Excellence folks have been able to identify those gaps as new freshman classes have come in, and help augment, support, fill in those gaps with our student athletes to set them up so that they are capable and prepared to be successful in college work. Very happy with the academic success of our student athletes.
Yeah. My son graduates this year, and I think he was in the 7th grade during COVID. And certainly it was, doing the online learning was certainly a struggle. You have to go in, you have to get your assignments and do all those kind of things. And some of them had to stare at a computer for hours on end. It was just definitely a tough transition for him and certainly everybody else that was caught up in that mix that will be coming into college this year. So certainly, lived experience here, no question about that.
Yeah. So as you've gone through that, have you noticed any places where you need to help to try to shore up things that he didn't get to experience in high school that he'll need in college because of the COVID gap that he had when he was in 7th and 8th grade?
I haven't seen anything that he would probably need other than just the social piece of it.
Okay.
But I certainly think that the in-person learning was much better than having to do the online type deal. That just became difficult for everybody, because it was all hands in terms of those assignments and those type of things. But certainly that social piece certainly lacked a little bit because there was no socializing during that period in time. So yeah, definitely those things.
Yeah, a real gap. Thank you for sharing that.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned transfer portal. How tough has that been on your coaches? Because a lot of them, you're having to introduce new people into the university every year. Sometimes they're one and done. Sometimes they come in, they're graduates. Sometimes they'll stay a year or two. You'll build them up and then they'll leave. So there's a lot that goes into that. How has that affected your coaches, or does it matter by the sport?
Yeah, great question and great distinction. Coaches are very resilient and adaptable, and the transfer portal certainly has impacted Division I college sports in some predictable ways and with some unintended consequences. The full measure of those consequences, I don't think we see yet. I suspect there are some other shoes to drop that will happen over the next 5 to 10 years, the next decade, that we will look back on and perhaps not be as happy with where we are as we think we might be right now with the transfer portal. But to your question, coaches are adapting. They speak about recruiting their team every year, re-recruiting their team every year. And certainly the layer of NIL and the money piece of that adds an additional dimension that has to be managed. One of the things I am hearing kind of on the edges in some conversations from some student athletes, not at A&T, but in other parts of Division I, that I don't think we have a problem with. Some student athletes have been beginning to suggest that they're transferring not because of money or not because of academics or bad environment on the team. They're transferring because their coaches appear to be afraid to coach them hard enough. Coaches are taking the perspective, if I push hard, if I'm demanding, if I set high expectations and then expect them to be met, that he or she would just jump in the portal and be gone. And so coaches in some quarters appear to be backing off. I don't see that on our campus, but it's something I want to watch. I want to be aware of. because there are reports of student athletes who have said, I'm transferring because I want to be coached harder. I need a coach who kind of gets on me, gets in me, rides me a little bit to push me to develop. And so I think that has happened in some places where coaches have said it's too risky. I don't want to offend. I don't want to hurt feelings. I don't want to sit down or say, we're not going to play that way. And if you can't measure up, you need to go somewhere else. And I think some student athletes are saying, no, I want to be coached. I want to be pushed. I want to be, to have to measure up to high expectations. Our coaches, I think, are managing that space well. Now, we have the portal has not been a difficult place for us to manage. We've, in the sense that there are always people who want to come to A&T. We've been blessed that as transfer spots have opened up, we have had more people trying to get in than we have leaving. Now that's difficult to manage. It's a new kind of recruiting. It's student athletes leave a particular situation for a variety of reasons, many of which are benign and make perfect sense. There are occasions where student athletes bring challenges or problems with them that were unknown before they arrived and that create issues on your team, behavior or character issues that you weren't able to see prior to recruiting. That could happen at any time, but it's a little more difficult when you're bringing in, as opposed to 10% or 20% of your team is turning over with freshmen or transfer students to now perhaps half. It's very difficult to think about a team culture if half of your team is new every year. That becomes quite a challenge. The flip side of that is it's conceivable that you could solve problems pretty quickly. If there is a challenge or a difficulty, you could flip it perhaps much faster than we might have been able to in the past. We're also, because of the new recruiting dynamics, because there are a number of schools who recruit the portal primarily, we're having opportunities to speak to high school kids that we wouldn't have been able to talk to 5 years ago, who would have gone automatically to a Power 5 or a Next 5, but are now saying they're not knocking on my door. Maybe A&T has an option that looks attractive to me. I get to go to the number one HBCU in America. I get a fantastic education. I get to compete at a very high level. Let's look at that. And so it's opening some doors into high school homes that we didn't have access to previously.
Would you say that men's basketball has probably been affected the most, transfer portal wise?
Absolutely.
And is the flip side of getting some of those high school athletes is that they come here, even some Power 5 kids come here to get their stats, so to speak, and then they almost use A&T as a junior college, next step, or is that just kind of part of playing the game at this point?
It's a really good question. That's the fear. That's the concern that I think everybody at our level is pushing against, is that we don't want to become a feeder program. And to put it in context, we've got 350, 380 student athletes at any one time. Most years we'll have less than 40 kids in the portal. So we're talking about a turnover that's 10 to 12%. So the vast majority of the student athletes who come to A&T are never in the portal. They're here, they do their 4 or 5 years, and they graduate from A&T. So we're talking about relatively small groups of people, disproportionately impacting, however, men's basketball, men's football, and to a growing degree now, women's basketball. But certainly I think the group that's being most impacted, certainly initially and continuing to be, is men's basketball. That's where the NIL numbers seem to be crazy, and there's so much information and misinformation in the environment. There are individuals who are counseling these student athletes who are perhaps not acting in their best interest. I have mentioned before, perhaps not in this setting, but my continuing fear is that the group that will be most impacted negatively by the transfer portal will be African-American males. You get to a place pretty quickly after your second or third or fourth transfer where it's impossible to graduate. You'll have 180 hours and no school will be able to give you a degree. And you'll have played your 5 years, your 4 years, and you'll be done. The professional ranks won't be an option for you, and you'll have made some money over the course of those 4 or 5 years, but you'll walk away without a degree. And that to me is it's immoral that we, the NCAA, we as a group have created a system where that could happen, where a young person with the best of intentions might get themselves into a position where they cannot graduate because they've transferred to too many schools. There are no guardrails in place anymore.
Yeah. When I wanted to ask you, when you first heard of NIL, and maybe it's just my foolish thinking, I'm thinking autograph signings, maybe a Bojangles commercial here or there.
That's where it was.
Yeah.
That's where it was.
And now it just seems like it's pay for play. Just straight up pay for play. Whoever has the money to pay, they're going to be able to play. And how do you see Washington, D.C. getting involved in this? Where does this put A&T as an institution? How much does this change the Division I FCS landscape? Do all of those things kind of come? Because you mentioned earlier in the interview about the new Division I. I thought that was a very interesting term to use.
Yeah, you've asked 3 very loaded questions in that space. I may have to ask you to help me remember them. Do I think we're going to have national legislation to fix this? 18 months ago, started in a place where I said that can't be the answer. I am at a place now where I don't see another answer. I think the failure of leadership going back 6 decades, institutionally with the NCAA and with our individual campuses, is so profound and so deeply enmeshed in the current system that without federal action, it's unlikely that we will be able to stand college sports back up in any recognizable way. The disparity of state legislation, the inconsistency with which various rules and regulations can be applied depending on the state in which you reside, creates a patchwork of legislation that simply is untenable if we're going to run a national organization designed to govern collegiate sports. And so as much as I hated the idea 2 years ago, I am coming around to, I don't see another way through this. If there is not federal action, then we will have a break off of Power 5 football, at least. Will break off and create its own system that is distinct from other FBS programs and certainly FCS programs, and then obviously your non-football Division I's. We will go from a 3-tiered Division I program to a 4-tiered, and I don't see how we avoid becoming a farm system, or that doesn't become a farm system for professional sports. I think we're at a place, this is just you and me talking, where the focus on academics has the hypocrisy that's existed for some time is now out in the open. And
well, before we go too far, it's just not you and me talking.
Yeah.
to be clear on that one.
Yeah. We've given lip service at a number of levels, a number of places to academics and academic values and the academic mission and the connection between intercollegiate athletics and the academic missions of our institutions. I think we're at a place where we have to acknowledge that the emperor has no clothes. That's just not been, at least for a certain segment of the organization, that has not really been our focus. And it certainly doesn't appear to be that focus now.
And you pretty much answered a lot of it, but the new Division One, I think you mentioned 4-tier system. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I'm speculating at this point. So we have a 3-tier system right now: FBS, SES, and then non-football D1. So your FBS is your Dukes and your Wake Forest and your Carolinas. FCS would be us, Western Carolina, Central. Your non-football Division Ones: UNC Wilmington, UNCG, UNC Asheville. Those are all D1 institutions in the state of North Carolina that coexist and operate, with the exception of football, across all of the sports in a way that is consistent in all Division One. If there is a breakaway, and I think that is more likely than not at this point, with Power 5 and their football programs, we will effectively have created a 4th division of Division One, because the expectation would be football would break away, but the rest of their sports programs would continue to function as Division One programs. Their volleyballs, their basketballs, their tracks will continue to be part of the rest of the NCAA family. The college football playoff system has never provided resources to the NCAA. That money does not, by statute or requirement, trickle down to schools outside of the Power 5. And so that's likely to continue in some way. Whether or not those schools continue to remain part of FBS generally or have a separate category and status remains to be seen at this point.
Yeah, we are here with Earl Hilton. He is the athletics director for North Carolina A&T, and really getting into some really good issues as it pertains to transfer portals, NIL. One last thing on this, and it's hindsight question, and it's 30 years ago, and you had your druthers, and college athlete says, hey, you guys are making a ton of money. How do I get my piece of the pie? What could have been done at those moments, maybe 95, 2000, around there, to have satisfied some of that without getting us to this point right now, in terms of, should they have been able to sign their name to make money? Should they have been given a insurance policy after, of being able to go to grad school? How would you look at that now, with hindsight being 2020?
Right. I think you're exactly right. And in the 90s is when it began to bubble up and could have been addressed. It could have been handled in a very orderly and seamless way, without the disruption that we're seeing right now in Division I athletics. And again, whether it's deferred compensation of some sort, or insurance policies paid for by institutions, or direct pay like we're at right now, where it's straight up revenue share. This is the piece that we can give the student athletes. I think institutions made some mistakes in a couple of ways. We let, and I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to be in trouble after this broadcast. We let salaries get away from us. Again, with the best of intentions, but we let athletic salaries get away from us, and we allowed athletics departments the discretion of retaining the revenue they generated without having an obligation to share that back with the institution, without a commitment. And obviously some schools did better than others in terms of School X makes $200 million. We're going to give $50 million of that back to the psychology department or back to academics generally, or back, we're going to build a new student union. And so if that had occurred more generally, the resentment would not have been as great. And if we had had the foresight, and again, everyone's making individual decisions in the moment that make sense. But as a group, we let the salaries get out of control. There's no better way to say that. There's no gentle way to say that. So we managed ourselves into this mess, and we failed to act at appropriate times and decisive times. The warning signs were there, but we just didn't. We couldn't get together enough to agree that as a group, we need to do this to save ourselves.
Yeah. So, because if I'm hearing you correctly, if we rein in some of the, and I'll say excess, not even just the salaries, but some of the things that were being built, and had a focus more on the student athlete, their welfare, especially financially, when you think about who was occupying these places from a cultural and economic standpoint, socioeconomic standpoint, some of the places where they were coming from.
You say racial, Brian.
Probably, there's not as hard feelings as they were. Mm-hmm. If you are assuring that some of those folks have an opportunity to leave their situation because they were able to garner the school revenue, if that makes sense.
It does. And I mean, you are familiar. We have student athletes who come from very difficult economic circumstances, and they don't need a lot, but if they could have enough money to get a haircut or to do the laundry, if we could cover some of that stuff, it changes the world. They had some walking around money, not millions of dollars, not even thousands of dollars. And we could have done that 30 years ago. We could have done that as an association. We could have said, we're collectively making a lot of money. As an association, we're making a lot of money. Broadcasting, capitalizing on these games and the excitement that surrounds competition. How do we ensure that we take care of everybody who's in the system, the administrators, the coaches, and the student athletes who are creating this product for us, going to school, graduating, becoming good citizens, but also creating the events that make this monetization possible? How do we take care of them? I think if we had been a little more deliberate and intentional in those conversations 30 years ago, we could have avoided where we are today.
Yeah, no question. I think the first time I really kind of heard about this was the famous Chris Webber story, where he's, I think Michael Albom is the author's name, but he says he's at Taco Bell and he needs money from his friend to help finish paying for his meal. He looks across the street at the bookstore, and his name is not on the back, but it's number 4. It's him, and they're selling his jersey for $80 a pop. And he's like, I barely can get a meal, but somebody's making $80, per jersey off of mine. So it just didn't add up. It just didn't add up. So it's certainly a dynamic that we should have probably tackled years ago, and we did, and then we probably will pay for it going forward. So
we are, and student athletes will pay for it.
Yeah. Just getting into some A&T stuff, facility-wise, is always a big question in terms of those things. And, probably they're not new facilities on the horizon, but do you see some things that are improving within the facilities as we go forward? Certainly, the elephant in the room is War Memorial Stadium always. But what improvements do you see facility wise, maybe in the next 5-10 years?
So let's start with War Memorial Stadium. Last I heard from Bill Barlow, physical plant, we are one permit away. And I can't remember if it's a federal permit or a state permit that we're waiting on in order to have permission to bid it out, to begin the demolition. We have one, I think we needed 3. We've got 2 so far. We're waiting on one more permit that will allow us to begin the demolition of the left field wall, the left field seating area in War Memorial Stadium. The goal there is still for that to begin to happen this summer. And I'm still cautiously optimistic that we'll get the permit in time to make that happen. Other facilities, certainly, we're chewing around the edges here on some smaller stuff. We're 90% done with the retrofit of the racquetball courts. We took the 2 racquetball courts down, knocked that wall down. I saw pictures. I walked through it actually 2 weeks ago. The floor is down, the turf and the rubberized floor is down in that space. They've got the walls wrapped. The equipment will be installed in June. And so that will be ready to go operational for the beginning of the year, for the August return of our student athletes. And that room will serve the student athletes who play and compete in the center of campus. So your basketball, volleyball, tennis, golf, student athletes will be served by that new weight room, mostly. I mean, obviously, you can go anywhere they want to, but mostly in that space. We have the dome that has been. I'm embarrassed to say how many years it's been in the making for us to get to that place, but I've seen architectural renderings for the dome and for the new Hall of Fame. Our goal for both of those facilities is to have them ready to use by the first of the year, but January 1st of 26 by the spring semester. So we've got some work to do between now and then in both of those spaces. But again, we've identified budgets and we've hired an architect, and I've seen the first draft of renderings of what that space could look like. We put a pin in. Go ahead.
What that would be mostly used for before you?
The dome?
Referring to the dome right outside of Moore Gymnasium.
Thank you. That bubble that's right outside Moore. Yeah, so it's going to be golf. It'll be hitting spaces, chipping, putting spaces for golf, probably the golf offices. It will also have we'll have a satellite training, athletics training center there with treatment tables, whirlpools, ice. We will also have open space for our cheer team to practice. They have never had a dedicated indoor space to practice, and so there will be open space, rubberized flooring on the floor, so they can put the mats out. And there's enough vertical space for them to practice the building, the pyramids, and the stunting, the throwing the student athletes in the air. It will also serve, coincidentally, as an ROTC range space in the cold, wet months, December, January, February. ROTC will all be able to come in there in the mornings and use that space. That's the dome. Thank you for giving me a chance to clarify that. I cut you off. You had another question.
No, I think you were going down. I think you said the dome, the new weight room, which will service men's basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, right. And I think golf may have been in there too.
Yeah, golf, tennis, volleyball, basketball will be in that weight room. We finished the lounge. The men's and women's basketball lounge was finished just at the end of the last semester of the spring semester, and that's right across the hall from the new weight room. We've put a pin in we were going to replace the track. We're still negotiating with the state and our vendor to see when and how that can happen. That was scheduled for this summer. That will not happen this summer. We've still got a few more questions to answer before we can move in that direction. Large construction will not occur. Big construction, new facilities will not occur until we, very likely until we move forward with a comprehensive university capital plan. We will try to move forward with War Memorial. We've got about $8.5 million already banked for that. And so as we begin to knock that down, we'll go as far as that 8.5 will take us, and then seek to solicit additional donations and contributions and support for that facility as we begin to make actual improvements. But I'm not asking anybody for money for War Memorial until they can see some dirt turning over and see some stuff happening, because that has really been out there for almost 15 years as a project. So we're not doing any fundraising on War Memorial after we spend, or as we spend our $8.5 million. Then we'll come back and say, this is where we are. You can see it. Let's see what we can do to try to close some of these other projects.
Our friend Benjamin T. Forbes, listening to us, asked a very good question. He asked about the tennis courts. Where do you see that project as our tennis team has played off campus the last few years?
They have. And we have resurfaced the courts at least twice in the last 6 years. The challenge that we have with the tennis courts, frankly, is the location where they've been built. It's built on either over a spring or in an area that has considerable water flow through it. So we resurface, and then in a matter of months, 18 months to 2 years, we get the big cracks again as it settles. We have had an initial exploratory conversation with the city about an opportunity to build 6 indoor, 6 outdoor courts to expand what's happening at Spencer Love. They would partner with us, and so those would be A&T's home courts. 6 again indoor, 6 outdoor, but hard courts for us, which will allow us to host and give us a permanent home. The other option is to try to find another space on campus where we could put 7 courts. The current location is likely not feasible for long-term success with tennis courts, just because of the nature of the substrate below the concrete. We'd have to go very, very, very deep. And even then, we're not sure that we could solve the drainage problems enough that it would be a long-term fix for those courts.
We're here with Athletics Director Earl Hilton. Craig Davis comes in to us. He has a question about conference realignment. Will we, with everything that is going on that you discussed earlier, is A&T always open to new conferences, new realignments? As we even see it in the CAA, we've had a couple of schools leave. Delaware, Richmond, William & Mary has announced that they're leaving. Is that a possibility, in terms of realigning?
Yeah, big picture, yes, obviously. Now, William & Mary just left football. They're still in the conference for other sports, but yeah, certainly. And I anticipate that over the next 18 to 36 months, there will be considerable realignment in college sports. I think that the House settlement, as it rolls out, and we begin to see some of the unintended consequences of this decision, there will be all sorts of movement in conference membership. And I think the NCAA is deliberately keeping those options available and open to all of us, because they anticipate that there will be people moving up, people moving down based on what's happening. So the short answer is yes, we look at it just as we did before we moved. We continue to look at it every year now. We continue to study and look at the landscape and see what makes the most sense for us. So that is a constant question and assessment that we have. And that will not stop as we move forward.
As we speak on conferences, you just came back from the CAA meetings. Anything of significance come from those meetings that can publicly be discussed? The conference meetings were fairly routine in terms of the agenda and the makeup.
everyone's sitting on pins and needles waiting for House, waiting for that decision to be announced and become effective. So there was nothing dramatic or earth-shattering presented to discuss, and nothing that was decided that would be earth-shattering or revolutionary from a conference perspective.
Well, we've got into some deep conversations. Let's get into some of the happy stuff. Track and field, they've got quite a few going to nationals. Do
you have the actual numbers, B? I know the events, but I don't have the actual number of athletes.
It's hard to pinpoint because you get alternates in the relays.
The 4x4, the 4x1s, yeah.
4x4 and the 4x1 both, made those. And then you got, like the twins, Xavier and Isaiah, they're in multiple events as well. But, like you said, the events certainly are men's triple jump. Mr. Partee did an excellent job. Xavier, the twins, I think they just put themselves on the national map. Each one of them qualified for 3 events apiece. So, and then of course the two relay teams, and then on the women's side you had Spirit Morgan in the high jump. Olivia Dow was the first women's triple jumper to qualify for nationals, and so certainly it was a fun week to watch A&T do its thing. And from your perspective, Alan Johnson had a pretty tough job from what he was taking over, and how proud of you of him.
Yeah, to come in and really to not miss a beat. Certainly more than I hoped for, and way more than I deserved. Just really a seamless move. Obviously, there was some transition in the first couple of years with the portal and kids moving around. And I was at the meet in North Florida last week and saw 3 different athletes who started at A&T, who were running for other schools, who had transferred out during that transition of coaches. But for Coach Johnson to be able to backfill and to load up, and what he's got coming in next year, especially on the women's side, it's going to be pretty exciting to watch. He's done a phenomenal job. He's incredible, a great guy. Coach Ross and Coach Johnson, just good people, and we've been very, very fortunate at A&T to have both of them. And of course, the history of space. We had a long history of fantastic track professionals that put our program where it is today.
No question about it. June 11th through the 14th, and Eugene, Oregon will be the nationals. Xavier Taylor had the fastest time coming out of the East in the 400-meter hurdle, so certainly he has a chance to add to A&T's collection of event national champions, and they may have some numbers there to where they can finish top 5. They could have the numbers on the men's side to where they can make some noise, because those SEC schools have multiple people, but they could make some noise there. Appreciate you joining us. Just so much, man, that we could get into, but certainly people want to talk about football. Certainly we had a transition there during Christmas time in terms of the football season. Tickets are now on sale. And so that's exciting as well. Talked to Coach Gibbs a few months ago here on the Pridecast, and he said he just wants the fans to be able to leave the past in the past and let these young men create a new future. How do you see that as we go forward into the fall?
I think that's an excellent perspective from our football coach. I'm excited with what I see, and I'm such a novice. I walk around, I go to the weight room, I watch them, I listen to them, I watch how they engage with each other and with the coaches. I see their level of commitment. Young men coming back for voluntary workouts, coming back for second and third sets of exercise during the day. I think the staff that Coach Gibbs has built, I think our new strength coach and his staff are already beginning to pay dividends for our young men in terms of how they see themselves, how they carry themselves, how they feel about themselves before we play our first game. I think we're already seeing the fruit of the interaction of those young men with our new staff. Nothing will be easy. I have no way to predict how quickly Coach Gibbs can build this. I was speaking to Coach Broadway today, and he reminded me that success is always a group activity. It's always a group effort. It's never something that happens by one. No one has success by themselves. It is always a group activity. And so we'll continue to put the people, academic counselors, mental health counselors, and nutritionists, strength coaches around Coach Gibbs and his staff and our young men so that he has the team that he needs in place so that we can continue to build toward the success that we have enjoyed in the past.
No question about it. Do you see outreach to, as it pertains to season tickets, do you see an increase of outreach to millennials, Gen X, as we try to invite this new generation of folks with disposable income? Do you see that kind of being an outreach as we sell our season tickets? Because last year was a successful. Do you see that kind of coming to fruition?
The numbers for season books right now continue to trend ahead of last year's numbers from a point in time comparison place. I wish I had the data to tell you the demographics of those who are buying them. That's information I need to have. I should. That's a good question. I should have the answer to it. I don't. I know that Corbin and her team, from a marketing perspective, are bringing a ton of new ideas to try to create the right experience for our fans. Everything from how you park to how you enter the stadium to how you interact with the professionals who are there, the security and the parking, to how you engage with athletics administration if there are challenges or concerns or problems during the game, not just football, but basketball as well, so that there's a way for individuals to provide immediate, actionable feedback for us. She's, with the help of other professionals on staff at A&T, trying to create events that are around the game that give other points of engagement. We had the Grill Masters challenge with Ag Day. That's an example of creating opportunities for other points of engagement beyond just watching football that speak and reach to a larger community and hopefully create opportunities for people to plug in ways that we haven't had before, so that coming to the game is coming to an event, coming to a program, of which the game is a central feature and part of, but it's the band and it's the grill master or it's the charity that we're raising money or trying to draw attention to or for, becomes part of a complete and seamless and whole package, so that again it touches more people and gives them other opportunities to plug in to that space.
No question about it. Talking with Earl Hilton, we're getting some comments here about the football schedule in 2026. I'm not sure. Most of those things have been outfitted, if I'm correct.
25 or 26?
Well, how far ahead are we on our scheduling, I guess is the question.
We've got some of our non-conference games out through 30 and 31.
Yeah.
I don't have it in my head, but we do have.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's good. Want to talk about the success you had, 4 coaches of the year. Certainly, Alan will probably garner CAA outdoor as well as indoor coach of the year, at least on the men's side. How proud are you to know that, bowling coach, volleyball coach, women's basketball coach, track and field were able to accomplish that in one, semester year?
And that's a first, if I remember correctly, B.
Yeah.
Never had
And
4
no,
coaches of the year.
yeah, nobody does that.
So again, you know that I had almost nothing to do with that. You recognize that those coaches and those young men and young women did all the work in that space. I am so gratified, however, that work and that discipline, that focus is being recognized by their peers. That the people they compete against and with look over there and say, Coach Clifton, Coach Johnson, Coach Kearney, Coach T-Rob, those guys are doing an outstanding job above and beyond what's happening with the rest of the schools in the conference. So that recognition, that public recognition for them is very gratifying for me to see. I see it every day. I'm biased. I appreciate it when other people look and say, yeah, they're pretty special.
Yeah, no question about it. Volleyball getting underway in August as well. Football gets underway, excuse me, in August. Still awaiting the cross-country schedule, but certainly those things are right around the corner. Before we let you get out of here, have a little fun with you. Also, we re-signed with My 48 in terms of football
Yes.
and men's and women's basketball, so you can check out the football games not only on Flow College, but you can also check them out on My 48 this season. 5 home football games that will be televised on My 48. So certainly that is very exciting, and looking forward to that. Have a little fun with you before we get you out of here.
Oh dear.
Let's rank these top. I'm going to get you to rank the top 5 press box foods without knowing what's coming next.
Okay.
All right, first one. Pulled pork, or down here in the South we call it barbecue. Where would you rank that in 1 to 5?
I can't think of anything I want more than that. That's going to be my number 1.
It's going to be your number 1. Okay, all right. You're bold. Okay. Let's go with chicken strips.
Okay, you're hitting my carnivore side right now. I haven't had supper, so the meat all sounds good right now. Do I have Zaxby sauce?
Sure, Zaxby sauce. I'm not denying the man.
That's going to be 2 or 3, B.
It's got to be 2 or 3, man. You're cheating.
Okay. I'll make it 3.
All right, 3. All right. That's good. Sandwich and chips.
5.
5. Okay. All right. Brownies and cookies.
Is this what I want to eat or what I should eat?
These are just eats, man.
So that's going to be what I wish I could eat. It's going to be number 2.
Number 2. All right. So that puts pizza at number 4.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pizza number 4.
Okay. So you're pretty happy with that list?
I'm good with that list. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the name of the game. As long as you're happy with the list, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
All right. One last one.
Brownies, you got me. I'm pretty happy at that point.
All right. And you're going to know one of these already off top. And this is according to HBCUlife.com. Top 10 HBCUs in terms of population. Top 10 largest HBCUs.
So clearly A&T.
Clearly A&T is number 1.
FAMU will be number 2.
FAMU is number 4.
Oh, I'm in trouble, B. Who's bigger than FAMU? Publics or privates? Or everybody included?
Well, everybody.
Howard,
number 2. Yes.
Is number 2. Yeah, they've been making strides. They were pushing us for.
They're pushing us. They're pushing us.
Yeah. Howard, number 2. Who's bigger than FAMU?
They're from your home state.
I'm thinking it's got to be in the SWAC. Okay. Prairie
View's number 3. Very good.
Really? What's the
Prairie View? They're close. They're close. According to this, FAMU's 95. Prairie View's close to 10,000.
10,000. Okay. Dude, and we get beyond FAMU. Give me a conference.
This next one is in Charm City.
I don't know where Charm City is.
Really?
Really?
You've ever seen the TV show The Wire?
Nope.
Probably not. Kyle Ripken played there.
Okay, so Morgan State.
Morgan State, that's correct.
Why is Baltimore Charm City?
Say what now?
Why is Baltimore Charm City?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That's what yeah. I have no idea. But they have a great harbor though. They have a great harbor.
Yes. And great crab cakes.
Great crab, yes, without question. Without question. All right, so we need 6 through 10.
Dude. So give me number 10.
Okay, I'll give you number 10. Jackson State.
Jackson State. And so I'm guessing they're at about 6,000?
Jackson State is around 7,000.
7,000, okay. So would
one of them is a season opener.
Really? Tennessee State?
Tennessee State, yeah, number 7.
Number
so you got
7.
2 more.
So 6. We didn't do 6, did we?
We didn't do 6. You're right.
So I'm thinking these are all SWAC schools.
There's one that is not SWAC. It's the most obvious one.
Tennessee State's not SWAC.
They are easily forgettable. Yes, they are. But I get why you haven't mentioned them yet.
So I can't. They will not be mentioned. Is that 6?
They're number 8.
They're number 8. Okay. Yeah. So that we won't mention them. The other 2 are SWAC schools. Alabama A&M.
No.
Southern.
Southern is 1. 6. Yes.
Southern is 6. Okay. Who's number 9?
The last one has a similar name to Southern. You just have to put something in front of it.
Yeah. An HBCU.
Former New York Giant went there, defensive end.
They're that big?
Everything's big in Texas, man.
I didn't think they're popular. I didn't think the enrollment by Texas Southern was that big.
Yeah, they're around 7,500.
Okay. I knew Prairie View was that big. I did not know Texas Southern was.
No question. Mr. Hilton, I appreciate your time. Had a lot of fun. Very deep conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Last one of the year. Hope to have you back. I think people really enjoy these talks and this understanding of where we stand as an athletics department, kind of like a State of the Union type address. So really appreciate it, and hope you have a wonderful night. I hope you get some meat in you because you look hungry.
Dude, it's happening. I am about to cook something up. B, you've been a very gracious host. Thank you for helping me through this.
No problem, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.